That in addition to the agenda is the bylaw number 69, 2015. Do I have a mover for the agenda? Deputy Campbell and Councillor Body. All in favor? Carried. Declaration of funerary interest, if any. None noted. And 4.1 is approval of the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held August 24th. So I believe it. All in favor? Carried. 4.2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held August 24th, 2015. It's printed and circulated. Body and Hallahan. All in favor? Carried. For deputations, we have Paul Seabach of Waden Bender and Seabach to go over the 2014 financial statements. The floor is yours, Paul.
Thank you very much. Our presentation is the consolidated report. In reality, in this municipality, we don't consolidate a lot of things. Most of the things are under the umbrella of the municipality's books. The only adjustments we make in respect to consolidations is with the water and sewer, there's some due from the water and sewer to the municipality, and we reverse them out. So they're quite similar to the records you would see during your normal course. This report and the FIR, the Financial Information Report, are forwarded to the province, and that's basically a main way that they do your municipality for grants and etc. So that's why it's important. Just when we go over the financial statements, just a few of the things I'd like to take away from it. During the year, you spent $1.1 million on capital projects. You planned to spend 1.5, but some weren't completed, some were work in process, and there's a schedule later on to show the capital assets. Very important, at the end of the year, you had $8,039,000 in reserves. That's up $251,000 from last year. But when we look at the reserve schedule, $4.5 million of that is water and sewer, so it kind of shows where that's allocated. And on top of that, you didn't spend your gas tax, your federal gas tax last year, and that shows up as a deferred revenue for $250,000. At the end of the year, the debt outstanding for the municipality was $2.3 million. That's down $571,000. During the year, you made your regular payments, plus in May of 2014, you paid down the outstanding balance on the recreation complex. That's right. So that's something that you paid down ahead of time, which is a good thing. And finally, the way you treat your year end, a lot of the surpluses by department were transferred to reserves. And after that, you were able to transfer $26,988 to your own taxation, tax stabilization reserve account. In regards to the audit, everything was fairly smooth. During the year, there's no new accounting policies for me to report on. During the year, we did not find any unusual transactions that would concern us or cause it to report it to council. There were no difficulties that we ran into, and at the end of the audit, there was no unresolved issues that we report to council. And during the audit, we received full cooperation. Quickly going through the statements, the first page is independent audit report. It's our audit report. It does say that a lot of people think when we do the audit, we're preparing financial statements. The financial statements are the responsibilities of management. We conduct our audit. It's a clean audit report without any reservations or qualifications. The next page is a consolidated statement of financial position. It's what we used to call the balance sheet. It shows as of December 31st what the municipality owned, which are assets, and what it owed as liabilities. So quickly going through, at the end of the year, you had $11.6 million of assets. 800,000 of that was, sorry, 8,300,000 of that was in cash. Of that, $4 million was the municipality general bank account. Then there was roughly $4.3 million in water and sewer. Taxes, the municipality does a good job of keeping the taxes outstanding as low as possible. Of the 652,362 is current. So the municipality is basically collecting 96-97% of the taxes each year. Accounts receivable a little lower, $1 million. A lot of that is your water and sewer, recreation, things of that nature. One thing that's kind of unique to municipal statements, long-term receivables, that's actually your tile drain loans that loans you have forwarded to farmers for tile drain projects. And that same number shows up in liabilities under municipal debt. So they kind of cancel, but we're required to report it. The last financial asset, long-term investments, that's your investment in Westario. It didn't change in the year. That's a cost figure. Basically, about 7% of the outstanding shares of that. So that's your cost. It doesn't reflect fair market value, but that is the figure that is carried on each year. Your liabilities, $600,000 for payables. That's lower than last year. Last year there was some outstanding holdbacks, projects that weren't paid for, so that's lower this year. One thing that sticks out is the landfill closure cost. It's gone from $47,000 to $316,000. What that amount is for landfill closure costs, it's basically how much money you would need today to fund the cost of closing the landfill site and also monitoring it. And during 2014, we did receive an engineer's report with the municipality. So when they do that report, there's quite a few variables that they have to estimate. One is remaining life from when you will close the landfill site. Basically what they do, they take what the average is, how much remaining, and divide it by that, come up with a number of years. Contamination period, that's how long they have to monitor it after the closing, and that's dependent on the type of soil, if it's clay or if you need leakage and so leaching and so forth. The cost to close, the cost to monitor, and an interest rate. So there's quite a few variables. In your situation, you have 3 landfill sites. One is the Wingham, the East Wallmanosh, and your share, 35% of Blythe Hullet. So the $316,000, $47,000 is allocated for Wingham. And that's because they're estimating that Wingham has like over 100 years left of capacity. So anything you pay is so far down the road, the current value is low. East Wallmanosh, $233,000. It's somewhat unique because they say it's going to be 80 years, but because of the nature of the soil, etc., they've said that they would have to monitor it for 116 years, whereas in the Wingham one, you would only monitor it for 67 years. So these are obviously estimates down the road, but we're required to put, ask for a report and put some numbers in. So that's the difference between the $47,000 and the $316,000, basically a more up-to-date engineer's report. That's not a cash value, that's just a book entry, and that, when you look at the financial statements, it hits your environmental expense line. Other item, deferred revenue, $294, it's higher because, as I said previously, the $250,000 of the unused federal gas tax is in there. And municipal debt, there is a schedule for that, $2.4 million. So the difference between your assets and liabilities are $7.9 million, which coincidentally is actually very, very close to your $8 million of reserves. That's basically how your reserves are funded. The non-financial assets are your capital assets, your buildings, your roads, machinery, water, sewers, and so forth. And that comes to $50 million. And I did say that you spent $1.1 million on it during the year, but if you look, it actually went down. That's because during the year, we depreciated $1.5 million. We actually depreciated more than we spent on capital, and that's why that number is lower. The next page is the statement of operations, your income statement. It basically has revenue, expenditures. The taxation is very close to what was budgeted as normal. User fees, the majority is water, sewer, recreation, daycare. It's very close to what was budgeted. Government transfers, you'll see from Canada, federal, it's blank. That's because you didn't use your federal gas tax for your roads this year. You probably used it in 2015. Government transfers, Ontario, $1.6 million. It's a little different than budgeted. During the year, you received a Trillium grant for the 1419 project in Blythe. You also received funding for the Alice Munro project, which is $77,000. One thing that's important, your grant is $1.3 million, and it's scheduled to slowly decrease, but you can see it makes up a large part of the provincial funding. Other municipalities, the majority of that is county and et cetera for your daycare. Investment income, your bank balances were strong, so that's 176. And one item that's unique this year, gains on disposition, that's also a paper entry. When you sold, the major items when you sold your Olympia machine in Blythe, on paper, there was a gain of 21,000, so that's most of that. So your total income was 11,500,000. What you spent or expenditures, most of the items are close to what was budgeted. The one item I did speak to, environmental services, it's 269,000 higher because we had to increase the liability for the post landfill site closure, and that shows up in the $2.1 million under environmental services. So the difference between your income and expenses is the 115,000. That does include $1.6 million of depreciation. So on a cash basis, you take that 1.6 and you also add in the 269,000. You have approximately $2 million, which is you have to use to pay for your capital purchases. This year, you were able to do all your capital without borrowing. Pay for your long-term debt payments, the 500,000, and also your transfers to reserves. The next page is the change in net financial assets. So it basically tries to show on a more cash basis. It takes the annual surplus, adds back the capital asset amortization, deducts what you actually spent, and you come back to the $553,000. From that, you have to make debt payments and your reserve fund transfers. The next page is the statement of cash flows. What it does on your balance sheet in 2013, at the end of December, you had $8 million in the bank. This year, you have $8.3 million, and this explains why. You start with your income. The non-cash items are amortization and the increase in the landfill site closures. So you raised $2 million from your operations. Of that, you spent $1.1 million on capital, and you paid $574,000 on debt. You had planned to pay $264,000, but you also paid down the loan at the arena. So you raised, at the end of the year, you're $271,000 ahead in the bank. The next few pages are notes. Some notes I would stress. Note number 5 is your investment in West Ontario Power. It's very same as last year, but it does state that that's a cost figure, not a fair market value. There is note number 7 on the landfill closure. It's a little wordy. It's trying to describe in a short paragraph what's actually happening. It does say the key assumptions of remaining site life of 50 to 119 years, the discount rate, and the estimated time required post-closure care. It should mention we do have $116,000 set away to provide for this, so you have actually started to, anticipate at some point for the landfill site closure. Note number 8 is municipal debt. It's always good to see blank. So now this year, under the CWC loan, that was the Westcast loan. It went from 417 to nil. The OIPC loan was for fire when you bought your share of the fire department and the road grader. Regular payments brought it to 885. The $202,000 were for road projects. The $1,093,000 is the ESTC loan you took out to complete that project. The $205,000 is when you received a rate grant, that was the cost of the project, and the plow drain loans. So the good thing is that your loans have gone down and you haven't incurred any others for any capital projects last year. Just going to the schedules behind the notes, there is a schedule on capital assets, so actually two schedules. One breaks them down by type, land, building, machinery, etc. So for instance, under vehicles, 437,000, 405,000 of that is the fire truck you purchased. The next page on the capital assets breaks it down by department. The $9,271 for the general government was renovations here. Protection or investments in the police equipment and fire truck. Transportation, you bought some vehicles. Environmental, you bought a back truck. At the end, you see work in process of 403,000. Those are projects that weren't completed in 2014 and expected to be completed in 2015. Probably the important schedules is the schedule of continuity for reserves and reserve funds. It shows that for reserves and reserve funds, you started last year at $707,788,000, and you ended up at $8,039,000. You can see it where money was taken out and where it was added by transfers in, transfers out. And then deferred revenue, you can see the federal gas tax funds, $250,000. The last page for the statement is segmented information. It's kind of condensed, obviously, but it does show the total income, 11 million. Of that, 39% comes from taxation, 35% user fees, and 23% comes from government transfers. So you are reliant on the province for funding. And under operating, wages make up 47% of your expenditures. So that's an important item. Does anyone have any questions on the financial statement? If not, I'd like to thank Dan or Donna for our help during the audit. And if not, that's our presentation.
Well, thank you, Paul. And basically, I would like to add my thanks to Donna and the team and Kathy, and the ones that helped keep things in line. And for a difficult year, where we were well, pretty near half the year without a CAO, the rest of the staff really stepped up, and I thank them for it, because I think the audit shows it.
Well, I would agree. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Reeves report. I guess we have a heritage book on the desk tonight, which means Treasures is 11th, 12th, and 13th this year, the end of the week. Also, coming up a week later would be the elementary school fair at Belgrave, being on a Saturday this year, and that I will be asking Deputy Reeve Campbell if he can take my place as a dignitary at it. The problem of wearing too many hats is that I'm a 4-H leader and a 4-H achievement day that I have to attend at Lucknow as part of the Lucknow Fall Fair. But I think things are coming along very well, and that the planning's in place for it. Moving to County Council report, it's with a little sadness that I report that there was in the council communications that there was a letter recommending denial of our economic development request, so that until we figure out exactly what is meant at this time, that there was the one letter, which seemed to go both ways on a number of points, so that it's going to take a little bit of time finding out exactly where we go for the next step on that. But for now, it's they said that they didn't have all the information that they needed. To my knowledge, it was never requested from us. The only information that was given was a copy of our application when we went to county council before the establishment of the Economic Development Board, so that I felt that there was a breakdown in communications, and we'll have to work on that. Moving on to 6.3, the financial report, finance and treasury, bills and accounts. Questions or Trevor?
So let me find here. I had a couple notes here. One is on page. There was some, just somebody else has it readily available. Feel free, can you find here? Am I the only one?
Yeah, it looks like the pressure's on you, Trevor.
There was one from a Text Help Inc. It was for $2,000 for a membership. I just want to know what exactly is that? Is that
It's page 9.
page 9?
In the top.
So that, Trevor, is on our website, and so that is for our 1-year subscription for Browse Aloud, which allows our website to be accessible for those who are not able to view the website and need assistance to meet our accessibility standards. Yes.
Okay.
And that's yearly.
And the other one was, and it's more of just because it is a fairly big number, is from CIBC Visa for $5,000 in the general, but obviously because you only have a certain amount of space, you don't know what that is. Is it a bunch of little things? Or?
Yes, it is. I can tell you what they are if you like. And the number on it.
I would expect some of those would be annual contracts.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
okay.
some.
Well, it would be a quarter of it.
Okay, so there was some of them were for recreation for day camps. So there was East Park Heartland, which is a program that the day camps went to. There was some things purchased from Fitness Depot at Cornwall for the recreation center, the Toronto Zoo, and then there was a couple of conferences for rec staff that went also in Toronto. And then the Toronto Zoo admissions as part of the day camp was $1,065. And then Sharon pointed out the AMO conference. Kelly and Tim have University of Guelph, some pesticide courses coming up. And then there was our Survey Monkey and some of the constant contact bills through ESTC. But I can give you a whole list. I have the whole list, or here's the bill here. You can take a look at it. But yeah, I questioned that too. When I review them before you get them, I get it all by GL code and all the breakdowns. So I see that before you do, but I know it's very difficult for you when you see a great big number as to what it's all for.
And you've answered as much of the information as I need. President.
Okay, is somebody willing to move approval of the bills and accounts? Trevor and Brock? All in favor? Carried. Is there any questions on the clerk's department update? Trevor?
Just to clear, just to need to, maybe it's just the way this reads, when it says in the daycare section, when it says we are operating with 8/10, is that 8 between 10, or there's 10 spots, do we have 8 people,
We
or?
have 10 spots and we have 8 children.
Okay,
So we can have up to 10 infants.
okay, so that's what that means, we have 8, we have 10 spots, right? We have,
Yeah, we're licensed for 10 and we have 8.
Okay.
So you can see we're a little over in our cost right now. That's why we're looking to
right,
expand our program.
Okay, motion to accept for information purposes. Allahan and Campbell. All in favor? Carried. From the finance department, the director's report, is there any questions? Trevor?
just clarity, for what period does this, package that the annual department go to, Dawn? In the year to date, to what month?
It would basically be for up until August.
August?
Yeah, there would be a couple of September bills posted in there, but it would be up until August.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody willing to move that? Yolanda and Brock? All in favor? Carried. And the 2014 financial statements. The Council of the Township of North hereby adopt the 2014 financial statements as presented by Paul Seebach, Auditor. Campbell and Sonny. All in favor? Carried. Year-to-date budget report. Is there some questions on that, or?
Just got it.
Just got it today.
You just got it today?
I just got this, it wasn't in the electronic. I see.
No, mine wasn't either.
Oh, okay.
Does council wish a chance to review it before you approve them? You could defer that.
We can defer that till next
Yeah,
meeting.
I would, yes, please.
Okay. Can you say deferred or?
And a motion to approve.
Motion to defer, Allahan and Sonny. All in favor? Carried. Recreation Facilities Department. The activity report. And further, the council approved the purchase of $3,000 worth of trees from Maitland Valley in the 2016 budget for the public tree planting program. And that should be a motion on its own. Okay. Okay. James and I. Oh, question?
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
So from the main doc, in the 2016 budget, that's our 2016 budget, or Maitland Valley's, or who's
Ours.
that we haven't done yet?
This is one of those things that ordering the trees, you gotta go this far ahead.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding
Yeah.
that it was the budget that we haven't
It's
done.
out, this is the first thing that we're putting in next year's budget.
Okay.
Bill?
Question, Pat, to Pat, to yourself, repairs to the jet fuel tanks. How much money do you end up spending?
I could give you the exact figure, but it's approximately $3,400 once everything was completed. We had some fire code issues. We had to put in another emergency stop it, and then the tank also needed repaired. We had estimated it might have been as much as 5,000, but I think it came in at 3,400. But if you'd like, I can send out the exact figure.
That's fine. There are still repairs that are required to that, are there not? Did you not indicate before that we had a rather substantial bill to bring them up to full compliance?
It's my understanding from speaking with the group that monitors and tests our tanks that we are safe, we are compliant, and so there's some other things that they suggest we get done, and I may be bringing those forward in the next budget, but pending any other item that I'm not aware of at this point, that should be the end of the repairs on the tanks for this year.
Thank you.
Brock?
I have a question about the new youth subsidy program
Um,
on page.
Did you have a specific question, or you just want to know more about it?
General question as to what the purpose of it is, and it's I notice it's managed through the Y, and how do they deal with the Wingham and Blythe and
So when we think of the Y, we often turn our head to Goderich and think of the YMCA physical building. The group that's actually managing this is the YMCA for Southwestern Ontario, which is their charitable organization. And so they have, the Y has donated the manpower to manage the program. And so anyone in Huron County, the family who would like to request some subsidy, and that is for either fitness, recreation type activity programs or leisure, music lessons, that kind of activity for their children. They can apply to the program, and then that administration assesses their need. And so we're left out of that. And then the other half of that is if a child perhaps wants to play soccer in Wingham, then they would approach Wingham Minor Soccer to become a partner. They would then be flushed out so that when a child from Wingham says, I can't afford to play soccer, but I want to play soccer, this organization will do two things. They'll say there is a Wingham Minor Soccer program, and they are a partner, and we can fund you through that program. So they're looking for two types of people to sign up with them. The vendors that provide the service, meaning could be a municipality, or it could be a dance company, a private dance company, or a minor sports group. And then they want the families to get in touch with them if they need the support. So this is on top of anything that they're running from the Brothers and Sisters Jumpstart program. They're limited in what they can provide. This group would, if you want music lessons, they'll try to find you the guitar. They will try to find you transportation. They will also try to find the youth, the teacher. So they're really trying to make sure all of the barriers for that participation are addressed. So it's a brand new initiative in Huron County. It's we've been at the table along with partners from the county Children's Aid Society, and everybody's sort of been working together to get this off the ground. So the initial brochures are ready, and we have them, we're putting them out at our different sites, the library, and everywhere else.
So just a supplementary, So we're doing something, our staff are doing something to promote this and identify situations where their help is needed and that sort of thing.
Yes, in fact, we've already had some children through it. So some of our programs have been registered through this program. So clients have been able to register, they couldn't afford to. And we have just received all the promotional material, so we're gonna start getting that out.
That's great. Thanks, very much.
Okay, maybe I wasn't clear on that. Kathy has had it, the motion was the facilities report for information purposes, and a separate motion for the tree purchase.
Which one did Jim?
We did the tree purchase.
Actually, that was for the information, received the reports. Yeah,
I'll
just-
do the trees then.
okay. Thank you. Well, it's all good stuff. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And part 2, 14 Queen Street, Belgrade. And it's about that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby approve the demolition of the municipal building at 14 Queen Street. And further, that staff select a vendor for the surface using the informal quote process as per pardon me, procurement policy, and that funds for this demolition and all associated expenses come from the 2015 capital budget allocated to replace windows in the roof of this facility. And further, that the staff be directed to work with the Belgrade Community Center Board to formalize a plan for the site for after the demolition to present to council for their consideration. As I don't believe there's any fiduciary conflict of interest, but I will be conducting this, but I will not be voting on it because I am a member of the Belgrade Community Center Board.
I have a question. Does the company that does the demolition, do they retain the materials that they take out of the property? Or
You can do it a number of different ways, so I think we'd have to look at that in the specification of the quotes, versus whether it would be cheaper for us to use our own equipment and haul the material away, or sometimes it is just as economical to include that all in the quotation because they may want to salvage
thanks.
some of the material.
Okay.
I'll move the approval of this.
Okay. Seconder. Yolanda. Question?
I thought when we asked for direction on this, we were asking for different options, not just the one, this is the only option that we have. That was my understanding when we first talked. Okay, that's just that. She's put her hand up.
Unless Reed would prefer it. You want me to answer that?
Uh,
So I presented a report to council on, thank you, July 6th, it's in this file. And I outlined sort of how this facility is sort of between a rock and a hard place as far as options. And so I was instructed at that time to go back to the Belgrade Community Center, the neighbors, and establish whether there was any interest in the property, other options, and communication back from the Belgrade Community Center Board was no, they were not interested in any activity going on in that facility. They were not interested in adopting it inside their property or within their mandate. On the other side, that property owner is just, the only concern they had was that their water was going to be connected with no interruption and cost to them. So because of the nature of the facility being that the property lines run the way they do and it's sharing a septic service, we can't sell the property. It would not have a septic service. we could try to rent the facility, but in order, before we could do that, we would have to spend the $26,000 to $27,000 on the roof and window repairs. So the time that it would take us back to gain that back in revenue and rent did not appear to be a good answer to the problem. But regardless, my understanding is that the two properties need to be merged if they share a septic. And at this point, there are two separate properties, and I know that our planner, thank you, is in the audience. If she wants to, can explain that better, how the zoning and the property merging would have to take place in order for us to, so that should have really happened back when it was first purchased and the property was added to the septic system of the Belgrade Community Center. But it didn't happen back in 1995, and so now we're left with this scenario. So I'm not sure if there's another option really, and that's what staff is recommending, is that after looking at all the possibilities, this seems to be really the only financially viable option.
Okay, there will be some people in the township who will be a little disappointed that building's being torn down. That's just not. It's a landmark. Yeah, it's township office for a lot of years. And, so no, I'm okay with it. I just.
Yeah, we recognize there's going to be some emotional reaction to the decision. However, we have to be financially responsible, and it's unfortunate with the space that would allow for septic. It just is not possible, because I think initially we all thought we could sell the property, but then when we looked at it, it's just and talking to our CBO and septic and water people, there's just no way to make it work. And I think in '95 the original intent was to purchase it to tear it down. That's what I've been told, and then that was quickly reversed just prior to tearing it down to turn it into the municipal office. But I'm sure there's people in this room that could answer that better than me. That is what I've been told by Ralph Campbell when I spoke to him about the property and its history with the municipality.
Trevor,
Just so I'm clear, that you're requesting to do this up to the amount of $26,500.
I think that the repurposing of the site, which I've allocated in my budget of approximately $5,000, I think I would come, my point in this I would come back to council with that plan. It is still municipal property, whether it's going to be a park bench or parking, handicap parking for the Belgrade Community Center. Those are all options that have been discussed. So prior to spending that money, I would like to have permission to spend the rest of the money that I've put in the $24,500 budget. I would like to come back to council with a plan after discussing it with the Belgrade Community Center board on how the site would be repurposed so that it would be blending into their property. I'm sorry, did I answer your question well?
So what you told me is that you're wanting $19,500.
Yep.
And then the 5,000 will be talked about at a later date. So correct. If something were to come up that would go more than $19,500, then you'd be back here anyways. Correct?
That would be my intent, yes.
So with the informal quote process, and Donna, can you refresh me, please, purchasing and procurement policy? Will that require, if it's over a certain threshold, council approval to accept those quotations?
Yes, it depends on what the price actually comes in at, but because there's such a specialized few that can actually undertake this type of work, that we will have to try to find out first and find someone to do it. That's step A. And then what the pricing is, and then follow our policy on that. But that's what Pat is looking for here as part of all this, to use the, for her to have authorization to be able to go ahead and do that up to the $10,000 there.
So in seeking out the estimate of $10,000 and speaking to a company that does this work, depending on how things such as what Brock was alluding to, will we let them take the stuff to the landfill without a fee? And things like that will all change what the quote comes in at. And so $10,000 is our limit on an informal quote process according to the procurement policy. So the process is I reach out to vendors and give them some standard shopping list that they would quote to, which we're asking them to do, the service. And then typically it is not required that at that stage I come back to council for approval. We would just take the lowest bid.
But if it exceeds a threshold in the procurement policy,
Yeah.
it would require council approval to accept the quote. Am I correct? You said 25,000?
Yeah, tenders are 25,000.
Okay.
I believe 10,000 goes to the department head, but
Okay.
we can look that up
Yeah.
and get back to you before the end of the meeting.
Yeah. No, that's
fine.
fine.
You're both here.
I think that was just sort of what Cameron's and headlines.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if something comes up that we're at where you're actually allocated 19.5, if something comes up that is unforeseen, that we're just not gonna continue to spend money without coming back here. So that's my
No.
question.
No, you're right. And if something comes in crazy, you'll be alerted. I'll keep you apprised of the process in my activity reports, and if there's another report that needs to come to council, we will bring that.
Thank you.
So you don't know for sure if this $10,000 will be that good?
No.
That was inside the estimate that I received from a contractor that does this work. And he gave me a range based on what we're doing with the fill as well, what we're going to fill it with, depending if it's going to be parking lot or whether it's going to be grass. So he gave me a slight range, but he was on site, he toured the facility, and he gave me an estimate, not a quote, because I wasn't bidding out the project at this stage. It's also in discussions with Tim Lewis that is the range that we should be receiving quotes in at, our CDO.
Anything further? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. And point 3, a facility users insurance program. The council of the township of North Huron hereby approves setting up a facility users insurance program through VFL Canada for the township of North Huron. This program will allow renters and facility users to easily purchase liability insurance for their events, rentals, leagues, etc. when they book North Huron facilities.
So, question through you, Reeve, to Pat, are we the middleman in this deal, or are they going directly to BFL, or how does that work?
So the process would be, if, for example, you were coming to rent the arena floor for a stag and doe, and we require that you have the following insurance. And you're like, oh, I don't know, can you help us? And so our system would be able to tell you what the price for that would be, and we could put that in your invoice, and then at the end of the month, we inform BFL of the insurance that they have covered and send an invoice or payment. So it's all done by us. We are the middleman. We do not collect any money for this. We're not a broker. We're just offering the service at the table, because it's not the big events that have the big problems. It's the minor hockey group that wants to hold a barbecue, and their hockey insurance does not cover for their food service. So they can, for $7, get insurance for that afternoon to allow them to serve food to the public, and covers them with $2 million liability. So we have a full chart here of what the fees are for what kind of insurance and coverage they would get. It would be in our system. We would, and if we don't know what it is, then we contact BFL with the details, and they give us a price back, and that person would be quoted that price. They're not having to purchase our provider's insurance. They just have, our requirement is they must have the insurance. And what we find is we end up chasing these people for these insurance certificates. They have trouble getting the insurance, or they choose not to listen to us if they need it. And then at the 9th hour, we're left with, they don't have the insurance, they don't have the right insurance, they forgot to add us as an additional insured on the policy. This will just be cleaner and reduce the staff time we spend on this. The person renting the facility is more than welcome to get insurance from anyone, as long as they meet the required insurance that any renter is required to have, or event holder in the municipality.
Great.
Question to Pat, to you, Neil.
Pat, what,
How do we,
Okay, we did $2 million worth of insurance, but knowing now we got at 5 million. Like what?
What triggers the
constitutes
difference?
that? Yeah.
So often that's a conversation with BFL, but for example, which is our insurance provider, if what limit we feel an event should have. However, it's in our municipal alcohol policy. If you're having an event with alcohol and you're the person providing alcohol, you need $5 million. If you're renting the facility and you're not serving alcohol and it's a low risk event, you need 2 million. So as soon as you're serving alcohol, we move it to 5 million. That's an example. However, if you said to me you're holding motocross races out on our soccer field, I might call BFL and say, that sounds like a high risk event. What limit should I be asking for? That's for the municipality to set. And we use our standard guideline. 2 million is typically the commercial liability we're looking for. It's when alcohol or a high risk event is involved that we ask for the 5.
So this 5 million is something new then. It's not.
No, and in fact, in a lot of our situations with contractors, it's 5 million. For electricians and things like that, doing work in our buildings, it's 5. But for event holders and such, it's typically, when we passed the new municipal alcohol policy, the $5 million limit was in there. So that was back in 2014, I think, that we passed that. So that's been in place since then.
Okay, because I know this organization they have been paying for $2 million worth of insurance, or they have been paying for $2 million worth of insurance. This year it's jumped to 5 million.
Yeah.
And of course, not too much notice, but it's costing the organization another $600 for the event this year. So, that's additional on. So, yeah, okay.
But if a group felt that the policy was too high a price for them, then they need to come and meet with us, and then it would come to council to decide it should be 5, it should be 2. But the policy is it has to be 5 right now. But if council wanted to make that change, that's up to council to make that change.
I think at this point it's
Yeah, but
late
it's the
right
same as,
now.
yeah, the Knights of Columbus, they hold bars all the time. They have to carry 5 million. I think the Belgrade Community Center Board carries more than 5 million. I think they carry almost, I don't want to say this, do they carry 10? Yeah, they carry 10. So there's a lot of groups carrying 5 or 10. It's a huge risk to serve alcohol, and the payouts are high when there's an incident. So you need to protect your volunteers and your organization.
Sure.
Thank you. I think when a lot of those, in the past few years, when municipalities have been looking at revamping their alcohol policies, that's when we've seen the policies include the higher level of insurance. And frankly, it's because of some of the awards that are happening when there have been incidents involving alcohol. So if you think of perhaps 1 or 2 people leaving an event and getting in an accident, $5 million doesn't go far when you have multiple injuries, when you look at some of the awards that are happening. And so that's why insurance companies are really recommending the higher rate. We do understand the impact on people who rent our facilities, but it's really to protect them and the municipality in the long run.
Yeah, I understand that. I just, 2 million, 5 million was the part that they couldn't understand that it just went up in that one year, but however, they'll deal with it. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have somebody to move this?
I'll move it.
And Brock? All in favor? Carried. And 6.4.4, the Public Works Department update, accepted for information purposes. Is there any questions on the report or anything that you want to add, Kelly?
I added a memorandum from signing about the testing at the landfill site. It's due to the high arsenic content, and we want to find out how far that is reaching out into the GC coffee.
Right.
So what are we finding? I'm getting this report, right? The lychee is getting worse, right? It's going out farther, and we've got to do more sampling. Is that it?
That's what they're asking for right now. Just to determine where it is actually going.
And is it,
And then we have to
we
come up
don't
with-
know how far it's gone.
Not
bad
at this-
it is.
Not at this point. And I don't want to get into the problem with the deal. Now, but why?
Okay.
Dave, question on the, to the read to Kelly, the recycling bins. We kind of settled down a bit.
No, we had some more complaints of it today. And even though it was curbside pickup today, the residents still wanted to actually bring us recycling here to the town hall. Because the bins were not empty before 3 o'clock. So yeah, there's still on some complaints, even though we had curbside pickup today.
So what can we do about this? Is there anything we can do, or just kind of wait and see if it levels out a bit, or just?
Well, there's different opinions on what we could do, what we should do.
You mean from late years, or?
Yeah, usually comes from repairs.
Do I have a mover of the report? James? Trevor?
Just one other thing, so you see the guys back, cutting road checks, doing a great job. Looks good.
All in favor? Carried. So, moving to point 8 in our agenda, new business. Laura Young, planner, Huron County Planning and Development, a site plan approval. Part lot 42, concession 7, reference plan I-22-6243. East Wallen Ward, Township of North Huron. Do you want to speak to this, please, Laura?
So this site plan is recommended for approval. It's accompanying the zoning bylaw amendment that was approved at the last council meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee for Chad and Ron and Michael concerning the new permitted accessory use of trailer retail and repair service. So this is their submitted site plan. We're not requiring this to have a formal bylaw associated with it. It's just going to, in a kind of addition to the zoning amendment, and go into the property file for visual reference and future use if necessary for any reference with this. So it didn't print quite that well in the what was sent out to you, so this is just a larger version once it's connected, so you can see. So you can just see here, it's been overlaid on top of the survey that was done, showing kind of where they have their existing vegetation and trees, and then the proposed layout of the trailers for display and the existing structures on property as well. So, and then their access and where, if any vehicles were going onto the property, where they would have room to park. And again, it's recommended for approval just to accompany the zoning bylaw amendment.
So we need a motion for the site plan. Motion of approval for the site plan, Trevor. And Yolanda seconds it. Any questions or comments? Okay. Oh, Ray?
I guess the site plan line, you can say, it's saying, for 10 trailers to be in.
Right, and that's what was approved
Yeah,
in the zoning amendment.
that's what we're going with. For
Yes.
10 trailers, 10 and 10.
10, right, 10 in the front and 10 in the remainder of the rear of the property. So that's what he originally asked for in the application, and then this hasn't been amended since it was approved as that.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. And point two in the new business is a review of the draft 2015 North Huron zoning bylaw update.
So one of the projects that have kind of been tasked since starting North Huron was taking over and completing the zoning bylaw update. So the background for this, and this is kind of an introductory information session to give an overview of the proposed changes that would be going to the provisions for the zoning bylaw and how the document will be at the end of the process. So the background for this zoning bylaw update was that in 2014, the North Huron official plan completed their 5-year review and update. And section 26 of the Planning Act states that after a 5-year review for an official plan is updated and completed, the zoning bylaw must also be updated within the following 3 years. So this is following that. And the proposed revisions to this zoning bylaw will bring it in conformity with those updates for the North Huron official plan and the most recent version of the Huron County official plan, as well as the 2014 provincial policy statement and matters of provincial interest. So this slide demonstrates where the zoning bylaw falls in the available planning tools. It's much more specific than any of the provincial legislation or a local official plan, and it directs specific land uses to designated areas. So that's the purpose of it. So the updated zoning document will have new and revised definitions and clarified provisions from the 2014 North Huron official plan, including what some derived from the 2014 provincial policy statement and the Huron County official plan. It is a quite small update in scale compared to other documents. That's because there has been various housekeeping amendments over the year to keep it current and reflecting updated planning documents that support it. The zoning bylaw has been cleaned up by being alphabetized throughout the subsections, and sections have been correctly numbered and more consistent formatting and titling to give it a better appearance and more user-friendly document. New definitions have been added. There's the farm and rural winery, which fall under permitted uses for on-farm diversified uses. There's the second units definition added. There's second residential units in single and semi-detached houses, row houses, or an accessory building, for example, above a garage. And the special policy area was updated because there's an area applicable in south of Wingham that is, has relative floodplain policies applied to it and will fall into the special policy area. So in the general provisions, there wasn't a whole lot of updates, but there was provisions to permit community gardens in specific zones and a full service requirement. So this is applicable to the Wingham and Blythe settlement areas, as well as Hutton Heights upon servicing extending to there. And it's applicable to any dwelling within a residential zone. And the hazard lands provisions were revised to be consistent with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, as well as the revisions to the minimum distance separation formula, and they've been updated to reflect wording from the 2014 provincial policy statement. I've removed any references to commercial wind facility because they've been deemed outdated and not applicable for municipal bylaws, as they're governed under the Green Energy Act at the provincial level. And I'm proposing removal of provisions for small-scale wind energy facilities as well. Those don't necessarily fall under the same provincial legislation as the commercial wind energies because they are small-scale ones that are not producing at a commercial level of energy, but they're not really applicable to this planning document, are rarely ever enforced or even utilized or applied for under these municipal planning documents or at a municipal level, and slightly outdated as well. And I've also been informed that North Huron has kind of identified as a non-drilling coast for wind energy, so it's not applicable in this municipality. So that was just a point for discussion to bring up, that I'm also proposing removal of that as well. So probably the largest change is concerning surplus farm dwelling severances and their automatic rezoning. So after someone has applied for a farm dwelling severance, the zone map is automatically updated and it will reflect the change from AG1 general agriculture to AG2 restricted agriculture for the retained farmlands and AG4 agricultural small holding, and that would be for the separate farmhouse. So the applicant, after receiving approval at the local council and at county level, would have no need as one of their conditions to come back to you for rezoning. We would automatically adjust their mapping as long as they had no special requests for either piece of land from the severance. And it would save them the time, approximately 3 months for the application, and the cost of the fee as well. So it's a much more streamlined process and has proven successful in the other municipalities who have already added this in. So that's probably the largest change that's going to happen, but it's a good process as far as the zoning goes and incorporating it with severages. Specifically in the agricultural zones, there have been some new permitted uses added. Licensed medical marijuana facility in AG1 and AG3. Wineries, also in AG1 and AG3. And group homes is permitted as well in AG1 and AG4. And in AG1, second dwelling units have also been added as a permitted structure or accessory use in AG4. In commercial zones, there's been no significant changes proposed. Those just kind of fell under formatting, titling, and number corrections. There is the proposal of 2 new zones to be added to reflect existing floodways and flood fringing that comes from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority mapping. So floodway zone has already been identified as a non-development zone, and this would highlight that in addition to the adjacent zone that's already on the property. And in the flood fringe zones, there's limited development as applicable from any limitations identified by the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. And the flood fringe zone is an overlay zone. So for example, if property was already zoned residential or recreational, let's say, the flood fringe zone would go over top, also just identifying that there could be limiting factors in their development because they're possibly in a hazardous land, and that consultation with the Maitland Valley would be required to permit development in that area. So those are 2 just to highlight, and it's nothing new that's being added. These are already also in certain schedules that are in the official plan, but it's new to the zoning bylaw. The only proposed additional use in the industrial zone is a licensed medical marijuana facility to IND1, which is the light industrial. And in the natural environment zones, there's currently 4 natural environment zones. There's any 1, 2, 3, and 5, which is quite heavy and a lot of natural environment array on the map. So I'm proposing the removal of any 5 zone. It actually had the same permitted uses and permitted structures as any 1, which caused some confusion over what exactly the differences between the 2 zones were. So I'm proposing that by removing any 5, all of those zones become any 1, and then their distinguishing features would be determined by their official plan designation, which would have them designated as either limited protection and limited development permitted, or full protection and full protection natural environment and no development. So that would be you would have to utilize the official plan in addition to the zone, but that would determine what development would be permitted on that property. And in the residential zones, the only addition is of permitting a second unit, the second residential unit as an accessory use, so that it can increase the density without having the need for additional structures to be put on the property, and increase the infill as well. And then no other significant changes. For the mapping, there's no major changes proposed. The goal is really to visually improve them and create a more user-friendly series of maps, because right now there's a sense of disjoint and a couple errors throughout that would be corrected. So for example, clearer road labels to give a sense of location in the maps, and more defined zone separation to clearly show what a property is and where one zone ends, and therefore could possibly affect development as the abutting zone. And the addition of that fringe overlay on top of the existing zones in areas that have the flood fringe identified, and improved clarity for zones such as the extractive resources and any conservation authority regulated lands, because they're quite difficult to read now, especially in black and white maps. Any request for site-specific zone changes would be considered on their own basis throughout the process, and if they were applicable to include, or wait for a later date to change them. And that would be if an applicant was wanting something to be changed, or if it would be addressed through the public process. So these are the proposed next steps. So the chart shows the timeline of the zoning update, and then any next steps, approximately when they should be. So throughout August, there was the meeting with staff to discuss revisions and get any input there. If there's any concerns or anything identified by staff. tonight is the introductory council session, and then to get direction to continue on with the process. And hopefully, with that direction, October 19th would be the proposed open house and agency review for the commenting period. The draft zoning would be circulated for comment in late September until that October 19th date. Following that, any revisions would be done, having received public comments, which would take us into, I would come back in early November to kind of summarize any changes or revisions based on those public comments received. And then early December would be the required public meeting to finalize and give one last chance for any public comments or any revisions. And then hopefully the second meeting in December would be submitted for approval. And if not applicable then early January 2016 at the latest. So it's a tight timeline, but I'm hoping we can do it. And so tonight would be getting direction from council. So in addition to completing this zoning bylaw update, I'm also asking to receive direction on adding in an official plan amendment. This would be completed at the same time along the same timeline and process. This is so to bring the current North Huron official plan into conformity with the Huron County official plan, which recently underwent an amendment to be updated to the 2014 provincial policy statement. The benefits of doing these two at the same time is that it brings both documents into the public eye for comment on proposed changes for the zoning, for example, and just making people aware that there will be slight changes to the official plan amendment. And then it also does save costs for advertising both of the open house and the public meeting at the same time, which is kind of a 2-in-1 shot. So if I receive direction for that, I'd come back at the September 21st meeting with a report just kind of highlighting the changes for the official plan amendment. They're also pretty minor. It would just be bringing it into conformity so that as the zoning bylaw becomes into full force as approved, the official plan would also be there to approve it as well, to enforce it. So,
I have a minor question, sort of procedural. Going back to the items of the small wind turbines.
yes.
Removing that from the plan, does that mean that anybody could put up a small wind turbine with no questions, or nobody would ever be able to put them up?
If it fell under the structure, it could be possible that something like the solar panel, that would be a building permit for that. So it would fall under anything that would be covered under the building permit. But if it was something that didn't require a planning application, there would be no planning enforcement to it.
Okay.
Right?
Now, Lauren, you were saying that would be solar, right? But
If it was something like solar, that would fall under the building permit.
okay,
I mentioned wind turbine.
yeah, I'm talking turbine, so a small turbine for my own personal farm.
Right.
You can still do that.
We can leave the provisions in, and then if there was anybody doing a planning application that also included putting in a small wind turbine for their own personal use, they would follow those provisions. So there would be something there.
Okay.
If any planning application warranted using them as a zoning bylaw. And then they're also there for bylaw enforcement as well.
I realize we're this council on what we host for turbines, but the ones I'm talking about is small turbines.
Yeah, they're kind of do-it-yourself installation ones.
Okay.
Laura, does any of the source water protection mapping find its way into either the zoning bylaw or the official plan amendments, or not yet, or not at all?
It will eventually. Right now, since it's not implemented and under effect at the county level, it wouldn't be enforceable at the local level. But one of the updates that could happen in the official plan amendment is inclusion of a policy how we have to ask for the restricted land use permit for any areas within a wellhead area. So that's something that's going to be discussed for the official plan amendment if there's anything, or if there would be a hold off on adding any source water protections at the time that it's fully implemented in the county level. And then there's kind of every municipality does their update at once, so it's a cohesive copies of update and we all have the same policies and able to enforce them at the same time. Because right now we're getting the authority to ask for a restricted land use permit from the Clean Water Act, which designates the conservation authorities, and which asks us to comply with those and get those permits.
James,
You're gonna have a real tight timeline.
Yeah.
Advertising will have to be done.
Yes, so advertisement would go out on the 23rd of September to be for the 19th of the open house. The 19th
And
of
just
October.
advertising once for that, or you want to put it twice, or, like, I'm just concerned that there might be people that might
Beforehand.
just,
It does say just one,
Okay.
but we could do it
no, I'm
twice.
just, if, like, we want to follow the guidelines.
Right.
Of this meeting, right?
And we can also post it on the North Huron website as well. And then at the time that the draft zoning bylaw is circulated, I can actually have a PDF for the draft zoning posted there as well, so that it can be accessible for anyone to read and prepare questions to come to the open house.
okay, with the suggested motion that I think we need to make sure it's on the township website as well, as an addition to what is printed. You're the mover for this, or do you want me to read the whole works?
I did just want to make sure that council is entirely comfortable with the proposal of removing the small scale wind facility references. And that. Okay. Thank you.
I'll make it a motion.
Okay. Will you allow the seconds? Okay. No questions, all in favor? Carried. The elementary school fair tent permit, is I have family involved. There's no fiduciary conflict, but I will not be voting on that either.
I have a question. Explain to me, does this fall under the new policy or the old policy, or how is this determined?
So under the new policy for donations and fee waiving, if this were coming in under that, we would deny the request. However, when we implemented the new policy, because we were mid-year, council requested that all the requests that come in from between now and the end of this year, that we bring them forward for you to consider under the old policy and be allowed to make judgment on each one. And then when this decision is made, a letter will go out to the group who has made the request to let them know about the new procedure and to make sure that we've captured all of the requests in. So there are 2 requests in this agenda to review that have come in since the policy was passed, but we're not at the end yet. So we'll continue to bring those forward to council for your consideration. And then Donna can comment if there's still funds available in your account to waive these or make donations.
So that was my next question, Donna, is that, do we have enough money in our council contingency to cover these requests?
Yes, we do.
Kathy,
Just before you make the motion, if I might, I had the chief building official do up the costing for the tent permit, and it is $85 is the base rate. So on the size of this tent, it actually would be $120, not $85.
I'll make the motion.
okay, you seconded by Jim. All in favor? Carried. And for the William Terry Fox one, also we're authorizing fee waiving for the Lions Pit Rugby.
All of it.
Trevor and Brock. All in favor? Carried. Moving to 9, council information. There's 3 points there. Brock?
I'd just like to make a comment about the chip example. When several of us joined this committee, the comment was made from several people that we didn't really know much about what this organization does, and we felt that it could have more support from the municipalities if people knew a little bit more about it. So their plan is to put out roughly a quarterly announcement about their activities and what is being carried on. So you have that in your package. There's quite a variety of programs that they have going. There's the speed sign. There's notifying people about the laws based on the use of ATVs and various regulations on traffic. And as well, we have placemats that go out to organizations. If you know of any organizations in your community that do dinners and that sort of thing, and would like to have placemats, I can get copies of these in large quantities if you're interested. So I'm quite impressed with the activities that they have, and they seem to be increasing in contact with people in terms of placing ads on the radio, placing ads in the newspapers, and so on. And of course, with the cycling issues that are coming up now, it's very much recognized as a very, very serious issue, and I really commend them on the efforts that they're putting forth.
Okay. Anything else? Trevor?
I'm interested in the municipality of Brockton's request to make West Ontario Power's board minutes meeting minutes public. I guess I'm okay with transparency in the fact that, but I guess the question is from my standpoint is, are they being public to the fact to all people or the municipality as owner? Like, I guess I'm struggling with who are they making them public to? It doesn't, at least I don't understand whether it's asking. It just says make all copies of respective councils of its municipal shareholders. So I'm assuming it's just being the councils, not necessarily the ratepayers within those councils, right? Is that what I'm understanding? Is that my intent?
I believe so. We do have Bart coming to the next meeting with the CEO of West Ontario Power, and perhaps that's something you can ask them for clarification.
Because I guess the follow-up to that is I struggle with the fact that we have 7% ownership and that we couldn't get those minutes anyways. But I guess Brockton's position is we shouldn't have to ask for them. We should be able to see them whenever we want at whoever we want. So it's interesting to that as to where this come up, because I'm all for transparency, but I struggle with the ownership of the owners are the municipalities. Why is they have to ask for it? It should have been already public to them, I'm guessing, but I can ask that question there.
Good. After attending the session on electric utilities and how the provincial government is pushing to reduce the number of companies such as West Ontario, having the magic number of 400,000 ratepayers as the model. My looking at West Area, I know they've been looking at the possibility of acquisitions or partnerships or different things. And in that, I see them coming to councils, but there's too much of a proprietary basis for it to be divulged beyond that because of negotiations within, I'll say, the energy field now for acquisitions, and that if it went completely to the public a lot before the companies had a chance to completely make the deals, and that a number of those deals could fall through if it was divulged possibly too early or whatever. So that there's a tightrope that we're walking there as we talk about. And I agree with transparency, but there's a limit.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, I would just like to know, like, this is Brockton's point of view. I would like to know West Ariel's point of view, and that's, I guess, the CEO and our representative, Bart, on that committee or on that board of directors, we might be able to shed some light on their perspective. That would give me a better sense of whether I would support this or not. I don't know what Brockton's got from them or not, so I'll wait for that information from West Ariel and our board of directors.
And there is 10 different shareholders of West Area. 9 of them are municipal. So that there is an energy company along with that. Anything else?
I'll move that the correspondence be ordered, read, and filed.
Yolanda? Seconds? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Correspondence? Rob?
The correspondence be ordered, read, and filed.
Okay. Trevor, seconds. Just the 10.8, the Memory Garden 13th Annual Remembrance and Dedication is September 20th at 2 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Committee reports, live BIA, August 12th meeting. Any questions or anything to add?
There's something requested of us in terms of supporting affirmative action on free
Share the road.
share the roads.
Sure.
That was directed to come back as a staff report at the last meeting, so the Director of Public Works is going to report back on it.
Okay, good, thanks.
For the BIA, July 30th meeting. Any questions? Okay, William Town Hall Theater Committee, the August 31st meeting. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to 12.1, bylaw number 66, 2015. Being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement with the County of Bruce for child care services. And it be introduced and read a first and second time. James and Trevor? All in favor? Carried. And that bylaw 66 be read a third time and finally time signed by the Raven clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Wayne and Brock. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 67, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the Raven clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement of purchase and sale of property, part lot 2, West Josephine Street, Plan 417, Wingham, part of PIN 41052-0171R, between the corporation of the Township of North Huron and Rodney William Critch and Joan Michelle Critch. And that they be read a first and second time. James and Trevor,
I have a question too.
go ahead.
Could somebody just remind me what that piece of property is?
It's the former Pletch Electric.
Oh, that's this conversation about, okay, yep, the Pletch Electric discussion, okay.
And the grounds behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. And that to be read a third and final time, signed by the Raven clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Trevor and Yolanda. All in favor? Here's my copy of bylaw 69.
Just to give council a little background, this is a memorandum of understanding regarding the job creation partnership program Connie had reported to you previously. So this is just talking about the work that Karen will be undertaking for the next while when she is on staff. Connie, did you have anything to add about?
Karen's going to be working on, she's working with the JCP, the Creative Countryside. So she'll be working on our arts and culture stuff for the municipality. So she's certainly working on some Alice Monroe stuff. We anticipate she'll be helping out with the East Wawanosh 150 and with certain other things that will be coming up.
Should I?
We just need to mention to you first time.
Okay, need a motion to read. Bylaw number 69, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the Raven clerk to sign on behalf of council a memorandum of understanding between Huron's Creative Countryside Job Creation Partnership Project and the Township of North Huron Economic Development Department. We introduced, read a first and second time. Yolanda moves, James seconds. If there's questions, Sharon will answer. All in favor? Carried. And that this job creation partnership bylaw to be read a third and final time, signed by the Raven clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Brock moves and James. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to council reports and inquiries. Yolanda.
You'll notice from the minutes of the last town hall theater committee meeting that they're the Almost Famous Players would like to host some form of lunch to bring attention to the project and also to their group. So I was talking with Karen Priest about that, And at this point, it sounds like there'll be a barbecue here at the town hall sometime in September.
When is that?
There's not an exact date yet, it's just sometime in September. But I'll let you know when I know.
Thank you.
I have, one, I'm going to read it because it'll make it a little shorter presentation. Blythe Community Center Advisory Committee is considering whether to recommend installing a Wi-Fi system in the Blythe campground. I'm hoping that the committee will be able to develop a proposal during their November meeting for presentation to council in early December. There are many technical and financial factors to be considered, so I'm calling an extra meeting of the committee in October to help us get ready to make that November decision. Richard Al will be explaining the technical factors and the costing of various solutions, and Pat Newsom will deal with some of the facility factors that are at play as well. The discussion will help us develop a realistic and practical recommendation to council. Another matter will be dealt with in that October meeting. As you know, staff are starting to a review of all our committees of various types, review their purpose, membership, terms of reference, current relevance, and effectiveness. CAO Chambers will speak to the advisory committee about this matter as it relates to the advisory committee, and will lead the discussion and answer the questions. The idea is that the advisory committee will be in a better position to decide what changes, if any, are necessary to meet the new criteria for committees of council to continue, in order to continue. The committee has two areas of emphasis: responding to concerns of major users of the facility and making recommendations to council on the expenditure of the memorial leaf account on the Blythe campground and community center improvements. This meeting will be scheduled for the second or third week in October. We're conducting a doodle poll to determine the dates when most committee members will be available. This will be a meeting of and for the advisory committee. Only the committee members and the presenters will be able to participate in the discussion.
James?
Down with Damo, I was able to talk to the post office people. This guy and I have had discussions for many years on post office, kind of on a first name basis now. And he was saying that the towns and the villages will definitely have their boxes put in the next 2 to 3 years. The rural area is not going to be touched till 8 to 10 years. By that time, I'll be out of here. But he would say they had just restructured the rural area back about 3 years ago. And he thought it was 8 to 10 years before they would touch the rural area. But it's the next 2 to 3 years that everybody will sort of boxes in different sections of the streets.
Anything else? Trevor?
This goes back to Deputy Reeve Campbell's question with Kelly. That the conversation about the service of waste, is that part of the service request that we've asked in our I just want to make sure I'm remembering that is part of the lengthy request of service review. So the ratepayers should be aware that is happening. It's not an easy, take a number, we're going to get there, but you have to be patient. It's not going to be an easy conversation one way or the other on what the right decision is. So I think we all need to show a little patience and understand that a decision will be made at some point. It's just not going to come tomorrow.
Just a little bit of rebuttal to that. When you're standing at the landfill and your cell phone goes off, and your irate person is on the other side of the fence wanting to talk to you about this.
I get them daily.
Do you? No, I don't.
So I don't think it's a difference. Like, I think everybody, all counselors are getting the same things. It's just the fact is, I think people are wanting gut wrenching decisions now, and that's not where we're at. So they have to be cognizant of that. It's a number. There's a lot of other things within council and staff's time that need addressed, and again, we all have to understand that. So.
Sharon,
So we weren't able to get together as a senior management team prior to this meeting just because of meeting schedules. Typically, we do meet before every council meeting. But one of the things that I have on the next senior management team meeting agenda is to get a status report on the service review reports to see if we're on schedule, and to see if anybody needs, any extended time to be able to complete those reports. But we're certainly going to try to work towards the schedule that council adopted. So at that meeting, we will receive an update on where we're at with that. But as council will recall, we did state that any service review reports that we undertake in this year, if it involves a change in the level of service, that public engagement will be part of that process. And so we have talked as a senior management team about having some public meetings in October, and which service review reports would require that public consultation piece. So I will be reporting back to council on that at the next meeting to give you the status update.
Thank you.
any more council concerns? Okay, moving to the CAO report.
Thank you, Vincent. So I have a couple of items on my activity report this time. As you know, we're having the shared services workshop next week, and if council has not responded to me about your attendance, please do so, and I will respond back to the county. So far, I just basically booked that every council member will attend on the 17th. They were wondering for catering purposes. And I've requested that all of the senior management team attend on that day as well. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion among the municipalities in the county to see where we can find efficiencies and what the desire is to look at shared services across the county. The next piece that I have is the countywide economic development strategic planning project. And I know that I reported to you at the last meeting on that. We appointed our core team, and further to that, that we would need to appoint a strategic planning committee. And we were to be receiving additional information about that at our August 26th Train the Trainers session for the core team. There was some discussion at that meeting among the municipalities about whether it would be appropriate to have those strategic planning committees as committees of council, or whether they would just be groups of stakeholders. And the consensus at that time was that they were not going to appoint them as committees of council. I think we still have some work to do to try to bring the stakeholders to the table. I don't think we have all of the stakeholders committed at this point that we may want to have. So we are, I'm recommending that we not make it a committee of council at this time, but we wait and see who we get to the table. And I think as we go forward and the core team is trained in each section of the plan that we're going to deliver, we may find that it may be appropriate to bring different stakeholders to the table for different pieces of the plan. So it may be appropriate to have a specific focus group session involving youth. Perhaps it might be a benefit to have a focus group session that would involve all of the council. And then ongoing, we would have the key stakeholders representing the various sectors throughout our municipality at the table following the facilitation sessions. But I would like to have a couple of members of council appointed to attend those sessions. And so I'm requesting some discussion among council about who may be willing to participate.
Are you looking for appointment, us to appoint somebody? That's what you're looking for.
Yes.
Are you applying for a
I really want to help with you.
I would find Trevor say.
Okay,
Now,
No.
yeah, and if I could add, I would like to add that Yolanda has attended the court, or the initial launch meeting and has expressed an interest as well. So she has been sort of involved in the project. So I'd like to put that out there as well.
So are we limited to two?
That is ultimately up
I
to
would,
council.
I would withdraw in her favor.
Trevor's got his hand up here for.
Yeah, alls I would say is that depending on when these dates are, these are daily, like during the day meetings. Like they're during the weekday.
We are looking at having facilitation sessions probably in the evenings because I think that's going to be when they're most people are available.
I would still say based on what my time schedule is at this point, I would defer to Yolanda and the Brock and Yolanda, like, cause I just don't have the time on top of whatever other committees that I've associated myself with council with also. Like Bridges Committee, school's back in session, so the Bridges Committee is gonna ramp up here. I just don't wanna provide myself, I don't wanna overextend myself and have a bad rap at home.
Okay, so
Does somebody want to make that a motion? Ray, and seconded by Trevor. All in favor? Carried. Is there a solution?
No, that is all I was looking for. And I was remiss actually. Councillor Knott also did attend that first session. So I should mention that on the 26th as well. Yes.
Right.
I have one question about the meetings on the Thursday and Friday. If I attended Thursday meeting all day, is the Friday morning going to be repetitive or is it new material?
I can't really answer that at this point. I would expect that there's going to be new material every day.
Okay.
But I think that it's understandable that people may not be able to attend both sessions.
I plan to attend.
From what we have been told at the county, that it's, you need to be at all sessions. Okay, for motion that the council of the township of North Carolina receive the September 8, 2015 report of CAO activities for information purposes. Ray and Trevor, all in favor? Carried. Okay, public gallery questions on things that we've discussed tonight.
Through yourself.
Yeah.
You had in your report that there was almost double the permits. How did that relate to the value? You said it was $4 million. Was it $2 million last year, give or take?
I would have to get that from you from the CEO again. I'm not, he's off now for the rest of the week, but I can find that information out for you.
That'd be great. It seems like a good news story.
Okay,
With the small scale wind turbine being removed, the provisions, are there anything, is there anything in the building bylaw to prevent someone from putting one up if it's, say, under the size of footprint that requires a building permit, which is 10 by 10, I believe?
The zoning bylaw currently doesn't have it listed, it's listed as an exempt item for height restrictions. So
Okay.
that's also where it's mentioned.
But say someone has an antenna tower.
That's, that's also exempt for height.
No, but I would say someone has an antenna
Oh, yeah.
tower. And they just throw one of those small scale wind turbines on top of it because they're not using it.
Right.
There's nothing against that now, with the provision in the zoning bylaw.
Right, the provisions were, were for where it was located, within an agricultural or an urban zone, so it can't be too close and it's too close to a neighbor's property in that area.
Okay, so someone in Blythe has a giant old aerial tower. There's now nothing to stop them without those provisions from throwing a wind turbine on it.
Right, like a spin thing.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be anything currently that would prevent it because they're not going through application ourselves.
But there would be recourse because of the zoning bylaw that currently says that there's rules about where you can put it.
Right.
But now there is no recourse.
With removing it, it would be up to if there was anything considered building. It's, to my knowledge, it's never been enforced and it's never had any used as applicable law.
Anything else?
Just to add on to the approval of the purchase or the selling of the C4 lot, the former Clutch Electric. I know there had been discussion, I wanted to update council on their current designation and zoning. That I know there had been discussion that they may be returning back to council with an official plan amendment and zoning as well for the addition to the property. But I've determined that it falls under the minor lot addition and they wouldn't require any further planning application and no further planning fees as well. So they won't be returning to council and that will just be handled again through minor mapping changes at the county level.
Okay, thank you, Laura. In camera session. And that would deal with personnel matters with the identifiable individual, including the municipal or local board employee personnel, or personnel matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, development agreement